Oh, hope I can keep up an hour of conversation.
It is Tuesday, 9 p.m. Pacific Time, and this is Film Geek Primer Live. Tremendo is not with us, Warren is not with us, and as of right now, Shu is not with us, but I do have Dub. Dub, how are you, sir?
I'm always available, apparently.
Yeah, well, we will, and as you may have heard, just as it was starting, oh, wait, nope, there looks like here comes a Shu. And
Talk about making an entrance.
Yeah, we have John Schuster with us tonight.
I have made an entrance. Hello, Dub. Hello, Santo.
Greetings, sir. Now, you are not in your normal location.
That is correct. I am not in my normal location. I am house-sitting for friends who are gallivanting to another continent.
Wow.
Yeah, wow is right. So you'll notice much more class here. Let me see if I can showcase the class.
Yeah.
Just a little bit of the class. Look at
Wow.
the general classiness, huh?
Wow.
Wow.
That's
Ooh,
that's like
here's a
J.J.
red
Abrams
lamp.
level. Wow.
Mm-hmm. A red lamp and general classiness, and then you're stuck with me.
That's
Are there pets?
The pets have been boarded because the folks are aware that I am horribly allergic to cats.
All right.
Yeah.
So
So
they
there are no
boarded.
pets at the moment. I'm just kind of hanging out of the house.
So what are you
That's pretty-
sitting?
What?
What exactly are you sitting?
It's a house, of course. I'm sitting a house. I want to make sure that a house is here.
Right.
And you can verify that fact.
Yeah, I
If you know
can't
we're live streaming
verify it.
that.
Incredibly, the house has yet to move, but it could move at any point in time, and I need to be on hand to make sure that that does not occur.
That's right. So when they come back, if a sinkhole occurs,
Correct.
you can be
They'll
the
know
one
who's
standing
playing.
outside of it when they come back going.
That's about
Um,
right. I don't know what to do.
So all right.
I now
Uh,
think the episode has this underlying tension that a sinkhole might open up on the house.
Yeah.
Film Geek Primer, the Sinkhole Edition.
So all right, Shu, why don't you open us up with the tune?
Sweet. That sounds like good. Hold on a sec. Oops, that's the wrong.
That's the wrong one.
That's a totally
That's gonna
different
get
song.
sued.
Yeah, that can get us sued. Actually,
$250, boom, right there.
really.
Come on, Aaron. We were dancing. You were not.
I felt it.
Did
So,
you?
and actually, the worst part is that tune possibly could get us sued, but I have a feeling probably not anymore. So I wouldn't
No,
sweat it.
I was careful not to play any more than 8 seconds of it.
Seconds, right? Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. The same. The
So
same. The same.
I had
Is that what
within
it
that
was?
30. I had that 30-second buffer in there, and yeah, I was sure not to go not to go past that for what is it, ASCAP purposes.
He was also very clever to seamlessly flow it into "Happy Birthday"
Right.
to get them suing one another.
Right.
Like if there's any lawsuit,
Yes.
it'll be against each other.
Mm-hmm.
So, Shu, before you joined us, had I mentioned to you during our conversations, which we had many of this past weekend.
Yeah,
for
we
those of you
certainly
watching.
did on many.
Yeah, I didn't see them until I logged on yesterday morning, and I was like, "Holy crap! There's like 3 hours of Film Geek Primer I have not seen."
Yeah,
Yeah,
holy crap, there are 3 hours of Film Geek Primer that don't involve dub. Those are the saddest 3 hours of Film Geek Primer in the history of Film Geek Primer.
Yeah,
well,
they
it's
were.
young. It's young.
yeah,
I'm sure much sadder days are ahead.
Yeah, we
how I
we
view
had
the
we had
world.
planned the Godzilla one a little bit because I wanted to chat about it because I had just seen the 1954 one at the theater down at the Egyptian,
Yeah.
a great place to see movies. And then I had come back from seeing Neighbors, the new Seth Rogen film.
Uh-huh.
And something had struck me, so of course she was online and we started texting, and of course it's like, you know what, fuck it, let's just go up online, which then
We gotta
that
go
started.
live.
Yeah, we went live with it, and then that was like an hour conversation. But then, like maybe the last 15 minutes of it, Shu, we started delving into weird other stuff, and we're like, you know what, we're getting off topic. We'll have you guys have a good night, and then we started chatting about this new thing offline, and we're like, you know what, fuck it, let's just go back on again, and so we started a whole new piece. So there's 3 hours of completely different topics that are brand spanking new. One on Godzilla, one on conservative. How do we say this? I say like the conservative nature of.
You might, yeah. That's kind of how you stated it. You went with a little conservative nature of Judd Apatow films, kind of dressed underneath the veil of a raunch comedy. But it's almost like perhaps the family values aspect of those sorts of films.
Right. Classic family values within raunchy comedies, and how that's kind of becoming
The
a new
Apatow signature. Mm-hmm.
very much a signature of a certain brand of comedy today. And then, of course, the third one was about CGI, the pluses and minuses, because we are now in a place where anything can be created, and how does that affect filmmaking, and specifically filmmakers. And that was after Shu had seen Spider-Man with Tremendo. And just to quickly encapsulate, what's your one sentence review of that one, Shu?
There are occasional moments where The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is sort of like a whale that can hold its breath for a long period of time. Occasionally it comes up to breathe really briefly, and at those moments it's actually not so bad. But for most of the film, it's a complete and utter underwater disaster.
All right. Yeah, I got that feeling. And one of the most atrocious reviews I've heard of it,
other than the one I just gave.
No, that's up there. Yours was the most concise. Yours was certainly the most concise, and honestly, the most poetic.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah, I agree. It was that was a gorgeous metaphor.
It had that Wayland imagery. I could see that whale. But it said that the movie spent too much time setting up sequels for villains. And I thought, oh God, that would be so horrible to watch. Like scenes in that movie that are so clearly setups for spin-off characters.
Yeah.
In a movie that I would imagine at its best is a bloated version of Spider-Man 3.
I would actually
going to be sort of a messy ride that I'm in for. And if you're telling me on top of it, you're incorporating some sort of universe-building plan that you are ill-equipped for, I do not want to see this movie. I have better things to do with my time, like this.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of interesting as we get sidetracked yet again about the whole the bridge movies.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is now this would be a bad movie, I think, regardless, that was just made worse because it has that bridge component where it wants to get you from the origin to telling the larger story. But in the process of doing that, you feel like you almost got gypped off.
Right.
And then you add all the other elements that aren't particularly good either, and you get a real mess in a portion. And I'd be willing to bet that in a lot of, certainly not all of them, the second Chris Nolan Batman film is obviously an exception to this. But beyond that, if you looked at a lot of the sequels that were made for the purpose of bridging towards some sort of conclusion, those movies are probably the worst of the lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird also because the first movie was a setup movie to set up the second movie to become a setup movie, which will give us third.
There's no story. There's no story other than furthering the brand, and you just feel it. You sort of feel it in everything, and maybe they could get at some point. Like maybe they'll be confident enough. I mean, I'm sure there's a 3. Everyone signed on for a 3.
Yeah.
No, it's all going to be horrible because then it's going to be these villain-centric, and they're going to try and turn one of these villains into a morally ambiguous character like Batman. Only it's not going to be Batman. It's going to be fucking Rhino. Like it's going to be terrible. There's nothing good that's going to come from Sony owning the Spider-Man license.
Yeah,
like,
it's weird.
When you go like 4 or 5 steps down the line, they want to Marvel Universe build, and they've got the resources to crank out something as crappy as Spider-Man 2 every summer.
Yep.
Forever.
Yeah, and what the plan right now, if I understand correctly, is to build a Sinister Six movie, which is what the end of this movie does. It's all about there's a Sinister Six film coming, and it's who cares? I mean, it's I don't know. The film it's a disappointing. If we're going to consider Captain America the beginning of the summer, we were off to a good start, but because it was beginning of April,
right?
It's like officially kind of in that weird way that I define kind of summer for some reason being like that first film in May, which is what it kind of used to be like. It would be kind of a drought up until May. You might have like something in March or April like The Scorpion King or some kind of lower tiered kind of blockbuster coming out. But usually there would be that big first huge flick at the beginning of May, which was Spider-Man. And it's just sad. And if it's a signature of what the rest of the summer is going to be like, which I didn't have a lot of hope for to begin with, we're fucked. But who knows? I'm actually hearing slightly better things now about X-Men: Days of Future Past, which is surprising to me.
That does surprise me too, because X-Men has done nothing, I think, to market itself particularly well. And coincidentally, there was a trailer. Instead of having the scene at the end like all the Marvel movies do, the part of the credit portion after Spider-Man included an extended trailer for X-Men.
Yeah.
And it made absolutely no sense. And everything that every trailer that I've seen looks like the whole process is we're gonna have superpowers and we're going to tear down a stadium. We're going to tear down big bridges. We're going to tear down roadways. We're going to sweep away landscapes. None of it makes okay. You got a bunch of CGI. None of this is making any sense at all, and almost looks like they either don't know how to put a preview / trailer together, or they have nothing with which to work.
Yeah,
it's a crazy trippy time travel story. It's a stupid time travel story where it's like the timeline gets fucked up a bunch of times, and it's going to be absurd. And I think the movie's going to be a disaster. I think it's going to be like we've been describing, this sort of brand furthering. And I happen to be semi-familiar with the story, having seen the cartoon of the Days of Future Past storyline, and it's like a Terminator ripoff.
Right.
So
yeah, the funny thing though about the scene they showed, the clip they showed, was a scene from the film, but it was a truncated scene, is what it appeared to be. If it wasn't a truncated scene, it's got major problems because it's Mystique coming in and freeing a couple mutants from an army base.
Right.
But it's such a, it's like they took the beginning of it, a few chunks from the middle of the scene, and then the very last shot of the scene, and mashed them together, hoping that they'll love this bit, and it makes no sense. Nothing. It's like they took probably a 5 minute, 3 to 5 minute scene, compressed it down to a minute, and it's just really sloppy looking, and I don't know if Singer was involved with allowing them to cut it down, or if it was just marketing somewhere going, here, we'll do this, this, and this. But it is not appetizing at all, and it was really confusing because the show that I saw it at, there were lots of people like, oh, so Spider-Man going to be in the X-Men movie?
No.
Yeah, so it was a really, really odd thing, and I know it was some contractual deal between Sony and Fox to do that.
Well, okay, so when does it happen that either of these franchises, the X-Men franchise, which includes Wolverine, or the Spider-Man franchise, which is now going to include the Sinister Six, let's say, when do they hand the brand off to an auteur? When do they make the Harry Potter transition from Chris Columbus, i.e. Bryan Singer and Webb, and give it to Alfonso Cuarón?
Well, I mean, with Spider-Man, they already did that with Raimi. I mean, they had somebody.
Right, and look how the results. They did very, very well with that.
Yeah, and Part 3 was definitely a frustrating movie for him because they were demanding that he put in extra bad guys and everything else because they wanted to try to build out the brand.
Sure.
And it created this clusterfuck.
Do you remember? I think we heard this interview together with Joel Schumacher talking about what happened.
Not Toyonics. Toyonics?
Toyonics was the exact word he used.
Yeah.
He said, I was in a meeting where I learned the word Toyonics, which referred to how you can generate toys from a media brand.
Yeah.
And when I saw Spider-Man 3, it was just, the Toyonics have taken over. I don't even know how to use the word properly.
I know. I think that's exactly how it should be used. Yeah.
Or maybe it has no usage. Maybe it's just an abstraction, never to be used in a sentence. It's the concept of trying to market toys.
Capitalize off capitalize off the ancillary product.
Right, rather than tell the story.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a long period of time, but before, even including Batman Begins, Spider-Man 2 was my favorite superhero movie.
Sure.
I thought that was great film. And
oh,
then,
it's still up there. It's a fantastic.
Yeah.
It really is a very
and then,
solid movie.
Dark Knight came along.
Right.
But I feel like that is who has the brands for both X-Men and Spider-Man, is whoever is in charge of the Toyonics division of Sony.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
I'm wondering because everybody wins if you hand it off to an auteur. Like if you give it a vision, or if you give it, to someone who has a vision for it, it'll create like a Christopher Nolan, it'll create a bigger brand, and then everybody wins. Everybody makes more money that way.
Yeah, I think it's at the end of the day, and whether the film get handed off to somebody who has passion for it is important. A distinct vision. Now, of course, that could be a weird right or wrong kind of vision. I think we kind of experienced that with Watchmen. But again, that can't be franchised, and the odds of making a lot of toys off of that deal was probably pretty slim to begin with.
But at what point do you trust the brand? Like, where is your, in Harry Potter, Chris Columbus established 2 movies, and then they handed it off, and they took some fairly bold moves in terms of who they gave it to. You're seeing it in the Bond franchise. If you give it to real auteurs, people who are capable of bringing a real vision, everybody wins. Right?
Yeah.
The movies generally do better. A really good storyteller plus an already well-established brand equals money.
Sure, and also the thing to remember with the Harry Potter series is, for a majority of them, and I can't remember if he wrote all of them or was away for a couple films, because I think he was supposed to step away but then came back in. Steve Kloves, who wrote the screenplays, you have that single person kind of being the shepherd of, okay, these are the things that we didn't do in one that we need to establish. So as he was able to kind of find his footing in the series, he was able to actually kind of create a much larger and more cohesive world that actually worked. But yeah, we talk about Harry Potter a lot for some reason, but that's what we do.
Well, it's a good example of an ongoing series of broader multi-cinematic storytelling.
This is true. Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's definitely a large franchise that they were able to turn into a relatively successful. I mean, even for a person who hasn't read the books.
8-film story.
Yeah, single arc story. Yeah, agreed. It's pretty tough to come by. Especially, luckily though, that also has the books for, it's already got its Bible to base it off of. So at least they know where the story's going. And if they had the Lord of the Rings, of course, that thank God he didn't turn into 6 films. Though it was very smart of them. Originally, it was planned as 2, and New Line said, "Well, it's 3 books. Why isn't it 3 films?" And Jackson's went, "Yippee!" So he pulled a young Anakin Skywalker. Shu, we have we're gonna just get into a little bit of the end of last week's episode for those of you who saw it. There was a kerfuffle's the wrong word. We just discovered that there was a passion within Dub Soul for the.
Is that what scared you? Was it the passion? Were you all off-put by the passion you felt?
No. Off-put is the wrong word. I think the shocking surprise with which you delivered your vitriol was impressive.
I would also opt for awestruck.
Yeah, awestruck is good. I don't know the last time I actually laughed that hard. It's been a while.
Well, you're young.
Yeah, this is true.
Well, but not young as he used to be.
Yeah. So yeah, no shit, right?
None of us are.
So you watched part of Convoy.
I did.
Okay, and so yeah, he actually did it. Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, I know, right?
First of all, shout out to the internet. Full movie Convoy streaming on YouTube.
Right. Oh, and isn't it streaming on Netflix still?
I didn't notice it was streaming on Netflix, but you know what? Dub watched it on YouTube, so that works.
So Ernest Borgnine's a dick. That was
right. So well, first off, how far did you get into the film?
Plot point 1. They had a great big convoy.
Running through the night?
Yeah.
That's as far as you got.
Plot point 1. I did not get into the meat of the story. What would be,
That would be a tough thing to find, actually, in that film.
As an aside, Convoy is still streaming on Netflix.
Okay.
Yeah.
All Okay, Deb, give us your impressions of Convoy so far. And are you gonna finish it? Probably not.
I don't. I'm trying to foresee a moment in my life where I had the time to like commit to watch a movie, and I choose to watch the end of Convoy. It
Sure,
might
right.
happen. Like I'm not gonna say never. That moment could strike me, but no.
Is this
Probably.
the first Sam Peckinpah film you've ever seen, or
No.
you've seen?
Oh, this would be my second.
This is your second. Well,
My third.
Okay, I hope you pick the two great ones and then pick the really bad one. There are a couple Peckinpah-esque moments in there that aren't so bad in the midst of the Christopherson debacle that is. I think it's a fantastic movie that Christopherson clearly carries with his Rhodes Scholarly acting job.
Well, what I really liked about it and what would bring me back to it would be that super 70s vibe.
Screaming 70s
That it
vibe,
had.
yeah.
And it reminded me, just to speak in film moments, it reminded me of that line in The Limey where he says, you're in a place and a time where you speak the language, and he's talking about being in the 60s, and he goes, that was me, 1964, in the first half of 65. Like that very specific time and place vibe.
Yep.
Convoy really conveys a very specific time and place vibe.
Yeah, Convoy almost feels.
That I liked.
Yeah, Convoy almost feels like a weird. It pushes much closer to like a grindhouse movie, like something you would have stumbled upon amongst the. It's got like a Dirty Larry, Crazy Mary vibe, or even a. It's not Vanishing Point. It's like after Easy Rider, you had your road movie kind of renaissance, I guess.
Right.
But it doesn't. It lacks any of the existential, philosophical things that a road movie is kind of supposed to be about. Except for the.
Right. Sometimes a movie is just, why is this a movie?
Yeah, that's exactly It's
There's a couple of 70s, early 70s films post Easy Rider that fall into that category.
Yeah. You didn't get to any of the like they're pulled over and the press shows up or the politicians start getting involved because they like have discovered this new folk hero who's pushing it's fighting back against the man and is standing for something for what America used to be and not what it has become.
I got to be honest with you. The way you describe it now, I want to see the rest of this movie.
Yeah, that happens. Where's that happen? Shu, like about halfway through?
I'm a citizen of the United States. I'd love to see a trucker sticking it to the man.
Yeah, he
could die at the end, and I'd be okay with that story. That's an American story.
Yeah, well, you kind of get your wish in a weird way.
Does he shave? Does he shave at any point in the movie?
No, he does change his clothes.
Are there any points in Convoy Wolf in which he's not the Wolfman?
No.
Because this is like Teen Wolf, where he's never not the Wolfman.
Yeah, no.
And I want someone to notice and be like, "Hey, are you ever going to stop wolfing out?" And just.
Right. No, he sticks to his guns and keeps his beard. It's got, oh man, what a weird fucking film. So you got like up till at least the cafe fight, and then the chase begins.
Yep, that's exactly it.
Okay, and the convoy had started to form.
What I saw was a group of truckers exchanging knowing glances, fleeing from a cafe where the law had just been bested.
Right. Yes. Okay. So yeah.
Like
basically, I think
like a modern day Robin Hood.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I would say you probably did reach what would be considered the end of the first act, if this film has what people might consider acts.
So I'm deducing from the information that these truckers are going to form the titular convoy.
Yes.
So I made a leap there.
You are someone who I think has spent a lot of time watching a lot of detective shows growing up. You'd have to be skilled in serious deductive reasoning to be able to piece together what you just did as accurately as you just did.
Right.
Well done, Dom.
This one's to you, Perry Mason. You know what you did.
Oh boy, I'm not sure even Perry Mason's legal abilities could save Convoy.
You take that back. You take that back right now. Perry Mason.
Well, you know, it all comes back to Raymond Burr in one way or another.
Yeah. That's the, I'm sure somebody has actually done their doctoral thesis about the cinema of Raymond Burr and his impacts on the social impact on American film from 1942 to 1984 or 85, whenever that last Godzilla film came out.
Yes, that would be correct.
Yeah.
And some of the latter Perry Mason movies that he probably made that were basically television double features along with Matlock.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Not the movies. I'm talking about the original show.
Yes. Oh, I'm sure you are. You're a fan of black and white. If only Convoy was in black and white.
Yeah, no, he's a purist. He's a purist. We're not debating that.
Oh, we all.
I like the TV show The Untouchables. The movie can go to hell.
Right.
I'm saying I'm a purist with the black and white TV shows. I feel about The Untouchables the way I feel about Perry Mason. It's the black and white show, and the movies are crap.
Wow. Yeah. I'd give you a little bit of debate on that one, but I see where you're coming from. Okay, so let's move into what we're gonna start doing is on a weekly basis. Somebody is going to present a film. They may have been the only person that watched it, but it will be announced, so the other those of us can watch it as well, or at least read up on it and do our studious duties to at least be able to hold some form of conversation for a few minutes. And this is going to it's going to turn into a primer. I guess it will be a primer to some extent, a cinematic education that isn't focused on just the classics. So I'm sure there will be some movies that a lot of us, that some of us think are crap. There are going to be movies that some of us think are, great. There are going to be movies that all of us think are crap or all of us think are great. But at the same time, they still have some sort of value or something that we can pull away from them. It was Henry Langlois who basically said that you can learn something from all cinema. You can't just pick and choose what's great and what isn't. And of course, over the years, movies that have begun as B-movie trash has escalated over time into what could be considered minor classics. Detour was a no-budget movie shot by Edgar Ulmer back in the early 50s, late 40s, early 50s, maybe just 40s. No, early 50s. And it was shot in like 5 days on a shoestring budget, and it looks it and it kind of feels it, but the themes and what he actually does with the money that he's given has kind of helped the movie rise to a much better status today. And movies shouldn't be based on their budget. They should see how they take what they have been given, the tools that they have been given, and what is they do with that. If you're given just a bucket to build a sandcastle, let's see what kind of sandcastle you can build. So that's kind of our attitude that we're going to do when we start looking at these films. So have you guys picked anything for this evening to discuss?
I have a couple ones that fall under importance of genre overall, so I think they're considered classics, but I figured it would be a good enough place to start.
Great, man. Why don't you go ahead and start off then?
Okay, I will. One of the ones that I included on the quick list here, and again, as you noted, this is a list that will expand into a variety of different avenues as well. But I think a movie that, if you haven't watched it, you probably should, is the Howard Hawks classic Red River.
Oh, interesting.
Now, if you go back and watch, and the reason to me is this: if you go back, stars John Wayne. If you go back and watch Red River now, it will seem horribly outdated and filled with Western cliches. But one of the reasons that I think this is a really important film is that it's basically the movie that created most of the Western cliches. And so those are kind of seminal films in and of themselves, even if you go back and watch them 60 years later and you can predict everything that happened at that point in time. But I think it's fascinating if you look at that as being kind of an impetus toward a lot of what the genre ultimately became, then you can sort of see, and maybe appreciate some of the value that takes place in that film. I think Red River, well, I don't know that it's necessary. If I was ranking my favorite Westerns, I'm not sure how high up the list Red River would be. If I was ranking important Westerns, Red River would be 1, 2, or 3.
Wow.
And again, it's related to its overall impact on the genre, and as a result of it, what we view as familiarity and kind of like general expectations from what Hollywood's perception of the Western ultimately became, and as a result, what our viewpoint of the Western genre, I think, became. I think it's a very important movie to check out. And like a lot of stuff, you have to deal with, obviously, the time, the editing, the effects, the rest of it. But, you know, it's also a pretty quick watch. And for when it was done, it's also, you know, really well done.
When was it done?
Great question. Let's look it up real quick here.
Yeah.
Vamp for a second, Shu.
As we all look up, la-di-da-di-da.
1948.
Yeah, it's also, I think, one of the, I think it's and there are a lot of classic John Wayne performances, but this, again, I think is one of those that you look at and has many of those components that have later gone on to be what we have expected ultimately from John Wayne, the actor, as well. So I think, again, there are a lot of components in this film that are important in regards to the expectations they created and what they ultimately led us to expect from that sort of genre. And I think that aspect of it is quite important. I'm not even sure it's I'm not even sure it's his best film. But I think it's
you mean Hawks or Wayne's?
Hawks.
Right.
I'm not even sure it's Howard Hawks' best film, but I think it's perhaps his most important.
Yeah, Hawks is a very tough one to pin down, only because he's a man who worked in several genres. I mean, he's done one of the greatest film noirs ever. He's done some of the greatest comedies ever. You know, I mean, he's a man of many hats, and he really was able to pull off a wide variety of films. And Red River, actually, so by this point in time, John Wayne had really been established as a movie star, and he'd worked for John Ford in many films up until that point, of course. Stagecoach probably being one of the most popular. I believe The Searchers came after Red River, but it was because of Red River that John Ford actually said, "Holy shit, I never knew he could act." And so there's this interesting thing of because John Wayne is much more a persona. You know, he is, and even today, I think the myth of John Wayne has a very rigid structure that all of us would say, yeah, that's John Wayne. I mean, you know, you're gonna find very few people who sit there and go, well, really, it was performance as Genghis Khan and the Conqueror that made it stand out. But it was, you know, I think it was Red River that really allowed him to spread his wings a little bit to blow up the persona of just kind of this standard masculine hero and allow him to be a bit more of a douchebag, a bit more of an ununderstanding. You know, he was a man of a more strict, rigid moral code like a lot of his past characters were, but this showed where this code could break down, you know, especially in his relationship with his son, played by Montgomery Clift. And it's very much a film about masculinity and manhood. And
so manly. It's so very manly. I feel like John Ford should have directed it.
Yeah.
It ends the way I feel like John Ford lived his life. I don't know why I associate John Ford with the movie so much, but it struck me as such a manly...
Because I think to a large degree, in addition to the manliness component, it has, again, many of, if not every, classic staple of Western cinema.
Completely,
now, you think of the Western director, the classic Western director being John Ford. We don't necessarily think of him being Howard Hawks, even though Hawks has done, you could argue, 3, 4, maybe even as many as 5 of what, the 20 most recognizable Westerns in the genre.
Yeah,
but
completely.
It's John Ford who's considered the Western director. Red River feels like a Western. It has a John Ford staple in John Wayne. Yeah. And I think a lot of those elements work to kind of muddy it a little bit, but really, I think much of what it is and much of what the genre is points directly to that film, and you can almost spray out from it what that genre became over the course of the next at least 25 years.
Yeah, well, and it wasn't like there was it wasn't like we were thin on westerns during that era either. I mean, that was the main staple. That was the action adventure film of its day. That was the movie, because they could be easily shot in, around Los Angeles. And it's like, even like, no grade B pictures and stuff were being made, or westerns were being made. But it was kind of this interesting pivotal point where it kind of it questioned masculinity in an odd way. I mean, in a way, it's really kind of ahead of its time, because it's about this moral code of two generations of men, father and a son, and what they both stand for, and what they both feel is right. And it ends with, and of course, it builds towards their showdown, towards their final battle, to see who is, quote, right and who is, quote, wrong. And the ending itself, the outcome of that, is pretty fascinating on its own as well. But also, it also feels like a Ford film. It includes Walter Brennan, Harry Carey Jr. So it's not as if it is devoid of lots of John Ford, John Ford stable.
It just feels to me like it depicts that rough and tumble life. And I lump John Ford in there. I would probably lump Ernest Hemingway in there.
Sure.
Just that kind of people who settle disagreements with fights occasionally.
Yeah, and then basically just let it go.
They'd be like whiskey together.
Yeah, completely. Yeah, we punch each other, and then this is how we let go. This is how we express our male emotion through exchanging punches, because we can't fuck each other. I guess I don't know what the weird thing was there.
Yeah. The long goodbye.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I've got actually one to talk about that would dovetail a little bit on what Shu was saying, because I was going to talk a little bit about Bullet, which, in a very similar way, well, I had several choices depending on what we were talking about.
Bullet is a fantastic choice, and one that I seriously considered as well.
Because it does many of the same things you're describing in the Westerns for what I would describe as detective stories going forward. It set so many standards that you recognized its storytelling in so many things afterwards. When you saw it, the same way you would feel about Red River being a compilation of cliches, Bullet is kind of a compilation of cliches at this point, because it's been so often mimicked and imitated and ripped off.
Sure.
So that's an interesting,
that's a root
of storytelling coming off of the truth.
That's a really interesting take, because the second movie that I selected on this list, I put in that category and place it higher than Bullet in that regard, and that movie is Dirty Harry. I think Dirty Harry is the model by which the cop movie and the cop genre as we know it, the post-Miranda cop genre, expanded for the next 20 or 30 years as Dirty Harry is that film, and I think Bullet is an absolutely critical film for people to watch for a variety of reasons. Yet it's interesting that I think one of the ones that I chose and put down as an alternate was Dirty Harry, and I put it down specifically, I think, Dub, for the same reason that you went with Bullet. And Bullet, of course, precedes Dirty Harry by about 5 years. But yeah, I think you can make a very strong point that there are similarities between the two approaches. Oddly enough, Bullet's 66, isn't it?
I want to say 68, actually.
Okay, so Bullet is right around the Miranda ruling, and Dirty Harry is plunked directly after,
on the other side.
Yes, directly on the other side of the Miranda ruling. That's
why Bullet is the more conservative and therefore TV-friendly point of view. He's a little bit more restrained than a Dirty Harry. He's not going around
shooting guys for no reason.
He's not reveling in the violence he's committing the way Dirty Harry does.
Although he has the opportunity to do so. And I think there are kind of a variety of interesting situations between the two of them as well. But Dirty Harry is the classic example of the liberal courts are giving criminals breaks. We're treating them with a soft hand. They're getting away with everything, and somebody needs to go outside the law to take care of business. And that theme carried over as a result of that ruling. From a movie standpoint, that was one of the most important rulings that took place for cinema. It became a focal point, a focal plot line for about every cop show that we've seen pretty much since. We still see that discussed, even though, you know, we're, 45 years removed from the actual decision. But that one decision was a specific point that allowed the cop genre in the late 60s and early 70s to become significantly more viscerally, physically, and in-your-face violent, and lead towards sort of a cop vigilante mentality that was a lot more overt than we had seen, I think, in cinema before that point, where a lot of it, for censorship purposes and other things, had to be a lot more kind of subtextual.
Right.
But,
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, but I was going to say, but Bullitt also stylistically had very much what became like a 70s TV cop genre style. And the reason I keep coming back to TV is because I guess maybe that would be the difference, is that cinema could do things more viscerally, like Dirty Harry, and you wouldn't really see...
I think that's a really interesting point.
Something as violent as Dirty Harry on TV, but you would see Bullitt. You could see Bullitt on TV. They could show that in prime time and probably... Well,
and I bet you're right that if you watched pretty much every television cop show, the general tonality of that and the amount of intense violence that they could show was probably much more reminiscent and much more from the blueprint of Bullitt than it ultimately was of Dirty Harry, which was very much a cinema's take on the cop genre. So I think
but it was still Dirty Harry was still in the Bullitt template.
Right. The Rockford Files looks a lot more probably like Bullitt than it ultimately does Dirty Harry, and it's probably laid out in much the same way too. And many of those 70s cop shows probably had that same feeling and do lend themselves to Bullitt in that regard.
Sure, and I'll tell you what though. I think one place where Bullitt exceeds and becomes much more cinematic versus television is the character of Steve McQueen himself, that Steve McQueen plays. What's it? John? I want to say it's John Bullitt. I don't know. Somebody's gonna have to look this thing up real quick.
It's Frank Bullitt.
Frank Bullitt. Okay, right.
John Bullitt's stupid. It's Frank Bullitt.
John was an '80s name. But one of the things that Steve McQueen really brings to that role is an odd level of humanity, whereas Dirty Harry is very much just kind of a knight that continually charges forward, and himself is very bulletproof.
No, disagree.
Well, hold on. Just hold on. Let me say my piece here. Is that there is a first? Okay, they both share Steve McQueen is incredibly nonverbal in this film, which is really impressive. And I'd like to know when the classic sequence of the chief chewing out the detective came from. I'm wondering where that scene originated, because Bullitt's, I don't know how far, it's got to be probably somewhere farther back, but Bullitt has one of those quintessential scenes like that. Right. But when you're first introduced to Frank, he's asleep in bed, and his partner comes to wake him up because they're going to protect a informant, and he literally wakes up. He's shivering in his, it's San Francisco. He's shivering his ass off and sitting on the edge of the bed, just kind of shaking, while his partner makes him a cup of coffee. And it's that kind of, and there are several little moments like that through this film where Steve McQueen is more than just the brazen cop who's going to get the job done or avenge his partner's death, which goes back much farther. So that's as old as film itself in time, actually. But he also has moments of compassion and moments of real humanity, whether he acts on it or not, or verbalizes it. He does a lot of the. McQueen was a brilliant physical actor. He really is a stunning physical actor. Whether his line delivery is a little shaky at times with stuff or anything like that. But if you look at Junior Bonner or The Getaway or any of these films,
he ain't for the talking.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's not. Yeah, he's a guy who would look at his script and say, okay, I don't need this line. I don't need this line. I don't need this line. I can do this. And you see, I think, through a lot of Bullitt, a lot of a human being within the cop. Whereas with Dirty Harry, he's not, he literally stands for, Pauline Kael called it fascist cinema, but he basically was just like, justice must be done, and that's exactly what I stand for, and that's exactly what I'm going to do, and I'm going to do whatever I have to do, whether it's on my side of the law or not, to get it done. Right. And at the end of Bullet, I believe he actually stays a cop.
Here's the thing. She can be right, and I cannot view that as a bad thing. That is absolutely fascist cinema.
Oh sure. I don't think she didn't say it was a bad thing.
Yeah.
She just simply said this. She just simply said this is what it is. This is what this movie represents. I don't believe. Actually, if I remember correctly, I think she did give a positive review.
So let's make some tension here. If we had to rate these, which one we can only recommend one tonight.
Dirty Harry versus Bullet. Go ahead. You go first.
Well, I had Bullet on my list. Dirty Harry is a great film, and probably if you sat down and watched them both side by side, Dirty Harry would be more entertaining because its visceral nature is more to our modern sensibilities, whereas Bullet would kind of grate on our modern sensibilities as we sat through it. We're familiar with the sort of point-to-point detecting that he does, and the tension he receives, and knowing he's always right, and knowing his intentions are always good, and he's such a good guy. And it's like you said, it's Steve McQueen. You just love the guy, and at the end of the day, you'd have more fun with Dirty Harry. But I think Bullet is a more essential film.
Shu?
And that's a really strong argument. I think it's a really good argument, and Bullet's a hell of a. Here, if you're talking in regards to essential, and you've got 5 hours in front of you, and we're telling you to watch a couple cop movies, watch them both, okay?
Right.
But in regards to, again, ultimately the overall impact and the way that impact was created by virtue of one Supreme Court decision, the Miranda ruling, and its utilization as a plot point. Dirty Harry became, I think, the model for what you could arguably suggest is the most viable, utilized genre in cinema and television for a good, 20 or 30-year period, and has been brought back to a large degree in a variety of incarnations, and many of those plot points are still utilized. There's a show on television right now that just resumed, 24, where Jack Bauer is basically the anti-terrorism version of Dirty Harry. Everything he does, it's outside the realm of legal parameters. So Dirty Harry's impact in the way that it tells a story and makes it connectable, I think remains, and you have to give Eastwood an immense amount of credit for this as well. As good an actor as McQueen is, and surprisingly subtle as McQueen is, and he is, Santo's absolutely right. McQueen's ability not to say something and facially act his way through it is fantastic. That's not a knock on, it's actually, it's very much a compliment to what he is able to do.
It's called acting.
Eastwood has many of those same, in addition to the lines that we all remember, many of those same no-nonsense sort of, what the fuck are you talking about? This is how it has to be done facial expressions, and he goes out determinedly and gets it done. He's almost a quintessential, Harry Callahan is a quintessential American character that believes in a code of black and white, right and wrong. This is how it is, and even if you're going to get in my way, I know that what I'm doing is ultimately what's best, and as a result of that, I'm going to get it done regardless of whatever the obstacles ultimately are. You look at nearly every piece of cop cinema and cop television since that point, and I think it can point directly to the impact of Dirty Harry.
Yeah, so you choose Dirty Harry, is what you're saying.
I would choose Dirty Harry in it, and again, that's a very tough choice to make.
Sure.
And honestly, it's one of those where it's a great choice. It's one of those conversations where it's a great choice to have. You know,
Yeah.
there really isn't a wrong answer here. Later
Yeah.
later when we do further episodes and maybe Tremendo gets involved and picks a piece of shit film, then there will definitely be moments where we can say that's an absolute piece of crap. Your argument sucks. But this is not one of these cases. Bullet is excellent and stands on its own for a variety of positive reasons that are right on the money. That is a quintessential McQueen character, and Dirty Harry does exactly the same. The respective directors did fantastic. Dirty Harry is a great Don Siegel film.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Don Siegel is one of the really Don Siegel almost has the platform for being the most talked about, underrated director in the history of Hollywood.
Yeah.
But if you go back, there's a lot
Credits include.
there's a lot of really good stuff that he directed, and Dirty Harry is right at the top of the list.
Yeah, Siegel, a very underrated director. Peter Yates, a Brit nonetheless, who directed Bullet, but also gave us a couple very different styles, very different types of directors. Yates gave us another quintessential film, I would feel, crime film, The Friends of Eddie Coyle with Robert Mitchum. Which is an amazing movie. It takes place in Boston. It's very much, if you need to find films that are kind of use Boston as a character and are about Boston, that's easily near the top. And then Siegel has done, he did Escape from Alcatraz. He's done, oh my God, you got the list there in front of you, Aaron?
Breaking Away.
Oh, that was Peter Yates.
It could take me a couple moments to track it down, but Siegel
Oh, sorry, was I that far behind?
Siegel
okay,
has another penultimate film, or another cinema. Did he do Pelham? Here, hold on. Did he do Pelham 1, 2, 3?
No, he did not. No.
Okay. It'll take me a couple moments to find it.
I'll tell you what then. Let me weigh in on my Bullet versus Dirty Harry vote on this one. And I got to tell you, I agree with it's almost impossible to choose in an odd way. Though right now, oddly enough, part of me is going to say Bullet only because the car chase. Bullet has Bullet was the beginning of the who's going to make the best car chase ever. He threw the gauntlet down because Phil D'Antoni, who produced Bullet, would then go on to produce The French Connection, and of course his one rule to Friedkin was, I want to up the car chase. And ever since then, and it went into. It's interesting because if you look at the Bullet car chase now, it's slightly antiquated. I mean, for its time, it's amazing, and there's some great stuff in it. And McQueen did a lot of his own driving, apparently. Oh my God, and that Mustang is just so fucking gorgeous. I don't
even think it's McQueen's best car chase movie.
Would you go with the Getaway on that one?
No, I'd go with The Hunted.
Oh, nice! His last film. That's a good point. I hadn't thought of that. Yeah,
the chase scene in that sequence is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, you're right.
And I think holds up very well. But you're looking at a guy, and I think you make the car chase point is very good from an overall television formatting standpoint.
Agreed. A lot of that led into what would kind of become. And why I think I choose Bullet probably over Dirty Harry is that I think there's more proto in Bullet versus Dirty Harry. I think you probably would have Dirty Harry without Bullet, but Bullet introduced a lot of staples that would then progress into cop stuff that may have been introduced, say, in Bullet, and then possibly perfected maybe in Dirty Harry, and then like the virus, it spread out into every form of media from that point onwards. The one thing I do like about Bullet and McQueen that I can't give as much credit to with Eastwood is that McQueen can pull off a relationship in a movie. Eastwood's never been that strong with romance in his films. He's tried. I mean, that's there's nothing against it. But he's also created characters that are never really about being in love. I mean, but McQueen. Whether the relationship in Bullet is love, it's at least it feels there's chemistry there. There's something that's really there's something that works. And McQueen is I would say McQueen is a little dreamier than Eastwood. Sure. Yet at the same time, both of them incredibly rugged, masculine men in different ways. But Eastwood, something that McQueen I don't feel ever did that Eastwood did, and that would make Dirty Harry kind of a bigger push, especially into modern cinema, is the one-liner. And I don't know, again, this is another one of those weird historical things where it's like, okay, where would like the one-liner really kind of catch on? When did that become the thing? And that's one of those things that really kind of started developing those one-line bits. You may actually want to go back to like Groucho Marx or somebody like that, where it comes to those zinger kind of that stuff. But as far as like the I'll be back moments,
right.
those
the
things
action,
that
or what is sort of perceived as the action genre staple. Yeah.
Staple, yeah. Those hitter lines, the go ahead, make my day, which was not from that. It's the do you feel lucky, punk? Well, do ya? And it's not even a one-liner as much as it's a speech leading up to that one line. But it's still, and it's like in the first 5 minutes of the movie. So it's but it's and. The bad guys, however, Robert Vaughn is kind of iffy for me, so that's kind of one of those points on Bullet for me. But I can't think of the actor's name who plays Scorpio though in Dirty Harry.
I think.
Thank you. Yeah, Andy Robinson. Correct. Yeah, who great psychotic. I mean, he's that, and I don't, and the psychotics go way back in movies as well. So I'm not going to say he's a creator of that. Or one of the development characters or people that helped develop that character. But it has a much more colorful bad guy, which is used, of course, to help really delve into and create the Miranda rights theme that is brought up in Dirty Harry. But I mean, something stylistically, especially, oh my God, the opening credit sequence for Bullet is so cool. The opening credit sequence for Bullet is just amazing, whereas the Dirty Harry sequence is just action. You're watching him go to the case while the credits roll. Both use San Francisco as their backdrop.
Right.
So that's also kind of has an interesting thing. I don't remember. Dirty Harry doesn't have a car chase in it, does it? It's got him jumping on the bus. It's got the great. Right, of course. With the psychopath, you get the kidnapping the kids on the bus. They do a great job. They do a great job in Dirty Harry of making sure that
cartoonish
people can relate. Yeah, people can go, oh, that guy's got to go down because he kidnapped kids. Everything he's doing. The first person he shoots is a dude in a rich dude in a swimming pool. We're all like, yeah, fuck him. But by the point you get to the kids and everything else. Oh, and Scorpio also buries somebody up in the woods. So his and Warren has joined us. But so his crimes are so devious.
His crimes are so cartoonishly heinous.
Yes, that you are more than happy to root for Harry to track him down and do his dirty upon him.
Right.
But part of me still wants to go, and I think it's because of the subtlety of Bullet my own personal kind of thing kind of tends more towards wanting to be on that side of the fence. But again, it's such a tough choice. You can't make any decision on what that is.
Santa, what do you have for us, or are you waiting for future weeks?
No. Actually, let's see. Well, I guess Warren has now joined us. How you doing, sir?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Good. So have you? What's that?
So what are we talking about?
Right, we've been basically we have started our new segment of picking a film that we feel is essential or has merit worthy of study, I guess, in some way, shape, or form. Doesn't have to be a great film. Doesn't have to doesn't have to be a classic. Doesn't have to be anything. It's just something that we admire and we feel has value to those who are seeking out movies to watch.
It's important cinematically.
Important, yeah. So, do you have anything that you I'm guessing you haven't selected anything.
I guess if I'm just thinking of like what's important for somebody, and you're talking about like somebody who wants to start like really watching movies and thinking about them and like as an art form and stuff like that. Is that your point?
It doesn't. Yes and no. I mean, because again, I think that falls into the weird.
Weird Al.
I think for
the sake of brevity, that's a decent explanation.
It is a decent explanation, but I also don't want to chase off people and think that all we're going to be stodgy about this and only be picking specific kind of we're not going to start with we're not going to discuss D.W. Griffith and move our way slowly through the classics. even though they will also probably, I'm sure, be brought up at times as well. But we also want to kind of bring in our own personal feelings on stuff and why we feel they're actually important parts of cinematic history and why they should be watched, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, I guess just off the top of my head, thinking of, I guess in that regard, I always think of like older movies that sort of seemed ahead of their time, at least to me, at least in my opinion. Things like Treasure of the Sierra Madre or like the Oxbow Incident, like those kind of movies.
Oh,
like,
Oxbow Incident's an interesting choice.
Good pull.
It's a really dark movie. It's like one of those movies you're watching and they're like, what year was this made?
Right.
And it's really it's like it looks like it's filmed on a set, but you don't kind of get distracted by that at all. I mean it was filmed on a set. It's not outside, but it's
like a play.
It's very much a play, yes, and it's very. I just remember watching it, going, God, this is a heavy, dark movie that from a movie made in the '40s. Like I don't feel like I should be getting this sort of feeling from it. And I had the same sort of thing from Treasure of the Sierra Madre too, where it's just these dark kind of movies that you don't expect to come out of that era.
Sunset Boulevard.
Yeah, exactly.
I would put in that category. It's so funny you described that, as seeming ahead of its time in that it has a contemporary feel. It sort of stands up to contemporary standards.
Exactly.
And those movies all absolutely do it. I feel like they're creepily timeless in a certain way because they're so dark and upsetting in some cases. And yeah, Oxbow Incident is absolutely one. And you see old movies like that, especially when they're so cheap and they're so bad and their visual quality is so sort of offensive to our eye, like Red River, would fall under that. You still see what they're trying to do so clearly. It's like, yes, of course, there were smart people who knew how to convey real ideas and emotions.
Well, it's what they had to work with. Like, this is what we have to work with. Let's use it. And they did a brilliant job of it. I mean, and then the obvious one on that in those categories is Citizen Kane. Which is like one of those movies you can watch over and over. But it wasn't a big movie when it came out because it was so ahead of what people went to cinemas for. They didn't quite understand it. It was great.
I would still say it's probably not everyone's taste.
No, it isn't. It's some people can't sit through it, but I love watching it. I love it's. You kind of notice new stuff in it every time. Like, wow, how did
I've been thinking about Treasure of the Sierra Madre a lot lately.
Well, the first time I ever knew anything about Treasure of the Sierra Madre was through Bugs Bunny cartoons.
Yeah,
I didn't even know the reference at the time.
Right. The Humphrey Bogart.
The Humphrey Bogart character. I was like, what's going on?
Right. And so your first response is, hey, like the cartoon.
And then exactly. That was my first response. It was one of those. No, but it was one of those things where I was like, that makes sense now. You're like, oh my god.
This is some shallow grave shit here. This movie is dark.
It does. It's really dark. For a movie made in the 40s.
Right.
Yeah.
Again, you got to preface it with the movie made in the 40s.
I disagree. I think you could remake Treasure of the Sierra Madre, and if you had the right actors, you could really pull off something that felt just as simple. It's a very simple story, I feel.
Well, you might end up with the Psycho thing, though.
In an awkward way, though, I mean, couldn't you look at There Will Be Blood in kind of in that same kind of vein as a Treasure of the Sierra Madre?
Yeah, no, they're pretty much the same movie, but one was made in 2000. Whatever There May Be Blood, was it 2010, 2009, or whatever. But yeah, and then the other was made in 1947.
Sure.
Right.
No, I only bring that up as a reference of if you want to kind of look at something, a modern day equivalent to make people understand this is if you understand the characters, especially how dark the characters are. Daniel Plainview is easily one of the darkest, most sociopathic protagonists that we've had in movies in recent years. That to understand Humphrey Bogart's character in Tim Holt, was that who the other? I'm trying to remember who played the other kid. So. I think it was.
You mean the poor fella who has circles acted around him?
Yeah. Tim Holt was not the strongest actor in that film, and it was oh my God! And I want to say it's not Walter. Of course it's Houston. It's Walter Houston. I was going to say Walter Brennan, but Walter Houston, Academy Award. He won Best Supporting Actor, I think,
He
for that
should have.
flick as well.
He must have.
And he's great. Yeah, and it's an amazing movie about what greed can do to a man. And
Exactly.
yeah, and it really holds up. And it actually, I think Treasure of the Sierra Madre, John Huston films are kind of touch and go as far as holding up on some of them. And Treasure of the Sierra Madre is definitely one that really does.
Oh yeah, that movie just stuck with me from ever since I saw it. It's just always like in the back of my head.
It's always there.
And I always forget, every time I watch Treasure of the Sierra Madre, for some reason in my mind, I always see it being all shot on location. But there are so many interior sets. There's so many, you know.
All the close-ups, like around the campfires and all that stuff. That's all set stuff. I mean,
set, yeah. It's all paper mache rock and trees sticking out. You
I
know,
feel like
you
some
can
of
almost.
the shootout with the banditos and stuff like that. Like some of it, like there's wider shots that it's outside, but then there's close-ups of them at the rock. They're clearly behind paper mache rocks.
Oh, completely, yeah. And I mean, and of course, the ending, the classic ending, is all shot exterior with giant wind fans and stuff like that. And the town itself, yeah, the town itself, where they start off, and it's interesting because the treasure hunting part, I mean, takes what, about 40 minutes to get to, maybe? I mean, it seems like it took a while.
It takes them a while to get there.
But as
it's the journey more than the treasure.
You can kind of figure out what's going on. I guess you could easily see this story today. You know, people sort of, you know, like Sorcerer, expats.
Sure.
That's the word I'm trying to come up with. Expats who are sort of desperate, who are looking for, you know, a quick fix or a way out, or I don't know, the emotions of Treasure of the Sierra Madre.
Men who are down on their luck.
They all just felt very real to me.
The kind of difference is, like, during that time period, it could have been any. It was a Western. It was like, you know, like, when exactly did that take place? Like, in real time? Like, what was the time of that movie?
Yeah,
contemporary. Was it supposed to take place in 48?
I believe so.
It could have taken place in 48, though. You know what I mean? Like,
the guy stranded after the war?
It was just like he was in some South American country, which is, for all intents and purposes, could have been the Old West, you know, in 1948.
Right.
It's like Sorcerer without the prologue. You just start out in the shithole place.
Yep. Yeah. No. Excellent. Couple excellent choices there, sir.
Yeah. And the Oxbow incident to me is like it's a scary movie because it's that mob mentality where you're just like watching it, like you watch everything turn, and it's like Deb said, it's very much a play. I mean, that's what it was.
Yeah.
And they just do a brilliant job of shooting it.
Yeah. Well, it was shot by. It was directed by William Wellman, who the guy did Wild Bill Wellman. Bazillions of movies. He's often confused with Billy Wilder. I think there was an old episode of Film Geek Primer where we have the name confusion game, and William Wellman and Billy Wilder are two names that kind of always, for a long period of time in my mind, were always kind of mishmashed together. And they're very different styles of filmmakers. But yeah, the Oxbow incident and Wellman. I was going to say, no, Wellman can't go darker because Billy Wilder actually goes pretty fucking dark in some of his movies. And actually, God, I was almost thinking of choosing one of his now. During this discussion, I was thinking of actually swapping over to one of his films. So anything else that you want to discuss about Oxbow Incident or Treasure of Sierra Madre before we move on?
No, I think people should. I think that should be on people's lists. If they haven't seen those movies and they want to watch movies, like, I think those movies should definitely be on their list.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's a great choice. I'm actually going to change mine because I was going to go with Touch of Evil originally. Yeah, but no. You know what? Actually, because I'm going to stick with Touch of Evil because I have a feeling nobody here has seen Ace in the Hole, right?
No, I haven't. It was just on Turner Classic Movies like 2 days ago, and I missed it.
I feel like I did.
I don't have a stupid DVR.
Who's in that? Tell me about it.
So it's Kirk Douglas. Hold on here, let me just look at. So it's directed by Billy Wilder, written by Billy Wilder, Lester Samuels, and 2 more credits. I won't look at those yet. But stars. It stars, let's see here, Kirk Douglas, Jan Sterling, Robert Arthur, Porter Hall, Richard Benedict, a lot of names that I don't recognize, Gene Evans, Harry Harvey, a couple names in there that are kind of character actors. But Kirk Douglas plays it's 1951, and it's what Wilder used his incredible success of Stalag 17 and Sunset Boulevard to move in to make this film in 1951. And Kirk Douglas plays a reporter, drinks a little too much, who has basically been fired.
I did see this movie.
He's been fired. He's been fired from a few jobs beforehand.
Right.
He's on the verge of being
Down
canned
on
again
his luck.
because. Yeah. So yeah, exactly.
Here's
Kind of that
that
down.
theme again.
And here comes
Kinda
the
that down
story
luck
of
thing.
a guy stuck in a hole.
Yeah. And so he's got to go cover some story somewhere, and basically it's his last chance. He's been caught drinking on the job again. He's not turning in his stories on time. He's got to go cover some story out somewhere. And on his way, he stops by this total hole-in-the-wall rest stop, basically, cafe. And the woman who runs the place, her husband is out in these old caves looking for Indian artifacts that he sells at his store. There's a cave-in, he's stuck. And basically, in his devious mind of this is going to help get me back up on top again, Douglas starts creating a story beyond this incredible story to go along with this thing. First off, it could be very easy to get the guy out of the hole. But he then starts calculating about, okay, let's bring in people to help dig him out from this direction. We've got to do this. We got to get people with supports and bring in all these companies to help out, or blah blah blah.
Slows the whole process down.
He slows the entire process down so he can start, and then builds the guy in the mine up, in the cave up, as kind of a working class man just trying to make his way in America, and this it's like a metaphor for the American dream just crushing down upon him, and he's blah 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 blah, and he slowly turns this thing into the biggest story in America. It basically becomes Baby Jessica. It's decades before, and would become kind of this very Baby Jessica story, and he's making and so now he's got. Or the Chilean miners or anything like that, exactly. Except, of course, it's just this acid, dark film about a man with no scruples and no ethics who's willing to basically let this guy stay down there and suffer so he can continue to build the story up. He falls in the woman, his wife, who believed that she married the guy because she thought he had promise, and, of course, is now stuck in this podunk little place, wants to get out of there. So she's willing to go along with the story as well, and the cafe is now making hand over fist amount of money because, of course, like the press has come in. They literally set up, and one of the release titles was The Big Circus. Literally, people are driving from all over the country to see how this story turns out, and a carnival is actually erected. The big carnival. There's a Ferris wheel, I believe, and other thing. Like it's this weird. It just becomes this giant, awkward tourist trap. While Douglas is always kind of like quote risking his life.
It literally becomes a circus.
It literally becomes a circus / media circus and others. And it's just, and the film bombed. The film, much like Kane, the film tanked and was I don't think it was ever released on video. It was one of those movies that I saw it because I believe it was one of those films that I was able to find like a dubbed copy off of television at a video store that I used to go to that would kind of have old movies that were procured from devious means. And John Smith, as a matter of fact, was the person that put me onto it back when he was in his big Billy Wilder phase. But it's a stunning. Yeah, of course, right?
I saw it not too long ago. It's out. It must be out on DVD. I saw it not too long ago.
Yeah, no. There's now a Criterion version that came out a couple years ago.
Yeah.
So it's over time, much like Sorcerer, much like Citizen Kane, it has kind of its reputation has built over time, and like a movie ahead of its time. The Times have now realized, like, oh shit, things like that happened back then too, eh?
Yeah, it was a bright movie. It wasn't happy. Like, nobody comes out the winner in that movie.
No, nobody comes out a winner in this one at all. Yeah. It has an incredible. That's
probably why it did very poorly. I mean, 1951. I can't imagine a depressing movie making, big box office.
Yeah, no, it was a film that and it didn't sink Wilder's career. It definitely kind of set him back a little bit. He would of course have a huge comeback with Some Like It Hot in 1954, I believe.
Did that movie do well?
No, nobody's ever heard of
Never
it.
heard of it.
Yeah.
Is this a sidetrack from your choice of Touch of Evil, or are you now officially choosing?
I've officially chosen after Warren was like, "What was it about?" I've officially now chosen Ace in the Hole as my film versus Touch of Evil. So
I knew what it was, and I think I was turned on to it because I had read when I was in middle school or college. We read some story about a guy who was stuck in a hole, and it was like an article. And then I don't know why I started researching it, and then I found this movie, and I was like, oh, I want to see it. Kirk Douglas, and same sort of story, and I just rented it, I think.
Yeah, and it's a great Douglas performance. The guy, Kirk Douglas, is one of those actors that was kind of truly fearless. He had no problem burnishing an image of movie star when it came to the roles he chose. And this is one that, and it's just, and he's got the chin, and he's sitting there going, it's the whole we're gonna do exactly what I want to do until it's done kind of thing. That was really creepy looking. I apologize, but and that was not even close to Kirk Douglas. That was possibly the worst Kirk Douglas. Yeah, that was. Oh, I was gonna say no. Actually, this is what Kirk Douglas sounds like today.
Oh,
but that's
don't do it.
Don't do it.
Yeah,
Don't
no.
do it.
We all know the joke. No need to say it.
Yeah. No.
But I think we should talk about this right now, real quick. Like 3-4 years after he's dead. Like,
yeah,
what's
fair enough. What's the limit? Yeah.
Yeah.
All
right. I'll see y'all then.
We'll put that on our calendar.
So yeah, really. So just to kind of recap stuff that we've suggested this evening that you need to check out so we've got actually we have quite a few films this evening.
Right.
So,
you've got an assignment this week.
Yeah, Red River, which also is now coming out on a Criterion DVD Blu-ray release with lots of extras. So yeah, so that's worth checking out. Bullet, followed by a Dirty Harry as well. Then we've got a twofer. We got a twofer on that. Then we got another twofer from Warren. So we've got the Oxbow Incident and Treasure of the Sierra Madre. And then I'm wrapping this thing up with Ace in the Hole. So a wide variety, and at the same time, there's and of course Citizen Kane, which was mentioned as well, but we didn't get too deep into it. And that's interesting because it's what Citizen Kane's like.
If you're here and you've made it this far, you've seen Citizen Kane.
Citizen Kane, yeah. And if you haven't, shame on you because it's
You're not watching this 2 hours in, being like, gotta start somewhere.
Yeah.
Movies,
eh? Yeah. What is this thing you call the flickers? But what is this magic lantern that displays images upon shadows upon the screen? Yes, there's. Oh my God! Everybody run! It's coming right at us.
Let's go to the podcasts. Find out all I can.
Well, according with our stream, though, of course, it stutters so much. It's highly possible that this looks like still images, anyways.
Sounds fine to me.
Yeah. So anyways, this is a wide variety of stuff. Mostly older films this time around. I hate to say this, I did actually ponder the concept of discussing Point Break. I'll save that for another week.
Wow.
It's been on TV several times. We will discuss.
They're remaking it.
Well, that whole thing after Gerard Butler walked away, who knows? I don't know what kind of state it's in now.
He did another surfing movie, though, just recently.
It's not going to stop. There's toyonics around it.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know about the toyonics on Point Break. So anyways, so you've got a variety of older films this week that we'll watch. Next week, one of us will decide who's going to choose the film for next week, off air, I think, because right now it's going to be a little bit of a tough call. But next week we will have a good 10-15 minute discussion on a specific movie that we believe is considered a primer, one of the primers to watch in your cinematic education. So let's go ahead and wrap this thing up here. Dub, where can people find you?
They can find me as always at FilmGeekDub, and generally sitting right here is where most people see me.
Fair enough. Shoo.
They can find me house sitting in various locations. If they want to bother with the social media aspect, they can always say hello on Shuniverse, which is SCHU-niverse.
Are you taking house sitting gigs if they want to get in touch with you for that?
Oh hell yes, I am. You've seen my apartment. Of course, I'm taking house sitting gigs. Anything step up.
So the stipulation, of course, being no cats, or you got to board them. That's
That's a good point. I might have to, fluctuate from one location to the other when it comes to animals, but I'll make it work. I'll happily make it work. I mean, there was an article in the local paper that talked about some of the rundown trailer parks and the mobile homes in Tucson, and I was thinking, man, those places look like a step up compared to where I reside.
Luxury.
No luxury.
So, Warren, where can people find you?
At Warren Graff. That's where you can find me. Not house sitting.
Not house sitting. And thank you for joining us, by the way. I'm glad you're able to pop in.
I didn't want to miss it, but sometimes you run late.
Yeah, no, these things happen. These things happen. Never let it happen again. So, anyways, you can find me at John Santo, and of course, everything that we do is right here on the Film Geek Primer page. All our exciting videos, where we're always having different types of conversations and questions. And we are not experts. Please remember this: we are not experts in any way, shape, or form. We are just people who love movies and are learning as well. So. If you no, not at all. No, I just want to clarify because we are as the almighty Akira Kurosawa said, I am a student of film, and we are as well. So there's always stuff to learn, and there's way too many movies to watch out there. So go out. Hope you enjoy some of the selections that we made this week. If not, come back next week, and hopefully we'll have something then that you'll enjoy. So anyways, folks, until then, thank you very much. And Shu, go ahead and play us out. Good night, folks.